The night the sisters reached the ranch, the snow was already swallowing the road. It felt sick and silent, covering the land like a white shroud, soft enough to look harmless, heavy enough to kill. The wind howled across the plants, slamming against the wooden walls of Esteban Rojas' ranch house, rattling the shatters like bones knocking together. Esteban had used banked the fire when he heard it. Not the wind. A sound beneath it. A fist striking good. Weak. Desperate. He froze. No one traveled this road in winter. No one sane. The nearest settlement was miles away, and the Apaches had vanished from these lands years ago. Driven west, hunted down, erased from polite conversation. That was what men said, at last. The knocking came again, followed by a voice so hoarse it barely carried through the storm. Por favor, ábrenos. Esteban's hand tightened around the lantern. His first thought was wolves. His second was bandits pretending to be women. His third thought, waiter, and welcome, was memory. He opened the door. The cold exploded inside. Two figures collapsed forward, half falling, half crawling across the threshold. Snow clung to their hair, their clothes, their eyelashes. They were young, one barely more than a girl, the other older, her face carved by exhaustion and terror. Both were Apache. The younger one grabbed Esteban's both with trembling fingers. Her lips were blue, cracked, bleeding. Déjanos entrar, she whispered, o moriremos en la nieve. Let us in, or we will die in the snow. Esteban stared down at them, the lantern shaking in his hand. The ranch had rules learned the hard way. Never shelter strangers. Never shelter Apaches. The militia didn't ask questions. They weren't first. The older sister lifted her head. Her eyes were dark and sharp despite the cold, burning with something between pride and desperation. We want to steal, she said. We want to stay. Used worms. Used until morning. The wind screamed in them, as if the storm itself was listening. Esteban shut the door. The younger sister sobbed. For a heartbeat, Esteban stood there, chest tight, telling himself it was done. He had closed the door. It was safe. He had chosen survival. Then he heard the sound again. Not knocking. Coughing. Wet. Broken. Human. He opened the door a second time and dragged them inside. They didn't thank him. They were past gratitude. He left them near the fire. Wrapped them in blankets his wife had woven before she died. Their bodies were frighteningly light, bones pressing through so book class. A poor worm rose between their lips, slowly, carefully, as the once done for a calf pulled from Ise. The younger sister clung to the wall like a lifeline. The older one watched Esteban the entire time, never blinking, as if mimicking his face for judgment later. My name is Nayeli, she said finally. This is my sister, Isa. Esteban nodded but offered no name in return. Outside, the storm worsened. Inside, the fire cracked and spat. When the sisters slept, curled together like wounded animals, Esteban started walk with his rifle across his knees. Every sound made his heart jump. The pop of good, the wind clawing at the walls, the soft, uneven breathing of the girls. He told himself he would send them away at dawn. He told himself many things. Before the dawn came, the sound of oaves shattered the night. Esteban was on his feet instantly, lantern extinguished, rifle raised. He peered through the shatter and felt his blood turn cold. Torches. 5. No, 6 raiders. Their horses steaming in the snow. Men with rifles slung across their backs and red scarves pulled over their faces. Militia. They stopped at his gate. A fist hammered the door, harder than before, louder than the storm. Rojas, a voice barked. Open up. Behind him, Nayeli stared. Isa's eyes wrapped open. The older sister didn't ask what was happening. She already knew. Fear moved across her face, quickly buried beneath resolve. They followed us, she whispered. They always do. The knock came again, louder. We know you were in there, the voice called. We saw tracks. 2 sets. Esmal. Esteban's mouth went dry. His ranch sat on land the militia claimed as their patrol zone. Harboring Apaches wasn't a crime. It was a sentence. Please, Nayeli whispered, gripping his sleeve. Don't send us back out. Esteban looked at the door. At the girls. At the fire that had already begun to save their lives. 8 seconds. Each of them dragged open the floor panel beneath the grind storage, shoved them down into the dark cellar, pressing a finger to his lips. Isa met his eyes, understanding the risk it was taking, and the price a would pay if discovered. The door shook under another blow. Esteban opened it. Cold torchlight flooded in. The militia captain stepped forward, eye scanning the room, nose wrinkling at the smell of brose and wet glass. Just sheltering anyone, Ranchero, he asked. Esteban forced his voice steady. Use me and the storm. The captain smiled. Veined Esteban, beneath the floorboards, Nayeli's cough echoed softly in the dark. The captain's head tilted. What was that? He asked. The captain took one slow step inside, his boots leaving wet scars on the wooden floor. Esteban felt the weight of the rifle in his hands, useless now. 6 men stood behind the captain, shadows dancing across their faces as torchlight flickered. The smell of cold iron and the snow followed them in, sharp and unforgiving. He asked you something, Rojas, the captain said calmly. Sounded like coughing. Esteban swallowed. The storm gets into the walls. Old house. The captain's eyes slid past him, scanning the room, the fire still glowing. 2 blankets drying near it, a bowl on the table. His gas lingered there a moment too long. You live alone, the captain said, since your wife died. It wasn't a question. Yes. So why 2 bowls? The silence stretched, seeking oak to choke on. Esteban shrugged. One cracked. Y kept a spare. The captain crouched suddenly, dragging a finger through the wet footprints on the floor. He followed them to the fire, then toward the grind storage. The cellar. Under the floor, Nayeli pressed her face into Isa's shoulder, shaking. Isa wrapped an arm around her sister, one hand covering Nayeli's mouth, her other hand clenched tight as if gripping an invisible knife. The captain stood. Men said lightly. Search the house. They found out. One pushed open the back door, letting in a scream of wind. Another lifted the blankets near the fire. A third walked straight toward the grind storage. Esteban stepped in front of him. That's private. The man raised an eyebrow. Everything's private until it isn't. The captain watched, amused. Move, the soldier said. Esteban didn't. For a moment, no one breathed. Then the captain laughed softly. Easy, Rojas. If you've got nothing to hide. He nodded. The soldiers shoved Esteban aside and yanked open the cellar hatch. Cold the rushed upward. Darkness stared back. Nothing here, the soldier muttered after a quick glance. Below, in the pitch black, he said her breast so hard her chest bent. Nayeli's fingers dug into her arm, nails breaking skin. The hatch slammed shut. The captain said, almost disappointed. Seems we were mistaken. He turned toward the door, then paused. You hear about the Apache women, he asked casually. Escaped from a transport wagon 2 days ago. Slaves, technically. Property of the estate. Esteban said nothing. They won't last long, the captain continued. A storm like this, nature finishes what bullets don't. His eyes met Esteban's, sharp and knowing. If you see anything, he added, you will report it. The men filed out, their laughter fading into the storm. The last torch vanished beyond the gate. The door closed. Esteban collapsed against it, breath tearing from his lungs. Minutes passed before he dared move. When he opened the cellar, the sisters spilled out like ghosts. Nayeli retched onto the floor, coughing violently, while Isa scanned the room, every muscle still coiled. They come back, Isa said. They always do. Esteban nodded. Enuito. He gave them dry clothes, his wife's old dresses, patched and faded. Nayeli clutched the fabric like something sacred. As the fire warmed them, the truths began to surface, piece by piece. They had been taken months ago after their village was burned. Sold, traded, beaten. Nayeli had almost died from fever on the wagon. Isa had learned when to stay silent, when to strike. They were taking west and north, Isa said quietly. To a mine. Esteban felt sick. We jumped when the wagon tipped. Nayeli whispered. We ran until our feet bled. Esteban stared at the flames, jaw-tied. Helping them had already sealed his fate. The militia violenta forget the tracks. The storm would cover some things, but not everything. At dawn, made his choice. It would take them to the old trading post in the canyon. Abandoned now, hidden. From there, maybe they could reach Apache lands farther west. They left before a first light. The world was wide and endless. Snow reached their knees, dragging at every step. Nayeli stumbled often, weak despite the worms of the night before. Esteban carried supplies, rifles long low, eyes scanning the horizon. Halfway to the canyon, he felt it. That prickle at the back of his neck. They weren't alone. A rifle shot cracked the air, striking snow inches from Esteban's feet. Down, he shouted. They dove in the fallen log as bullets tore through the silence. The militia followed. Horses appeared on the ridge above, dark shapes against the pale sky. Isa grabbed Esteban's arm. If they take Wes alive. She didn't finish. Esteban looked at Nayeli, trembling, eyes wide with terror. He raised his rifle. The first shot echoed across the frozen land. The echo of Esteban's rifle rolled across the canyon like thunder trapped in a stone. One of the raiders lurched sideways in his saddle, shouting as his horse reared. Snow exploded where bullets struck, with a powder flying like us. The militia returned fire immediately. Shots snapping through the air, splintering good from the fallen log that barely shielded them. Run, Esteban shouted to the sisters. When he say, Nayeli clung to Isa, shaking. Isa's eyes were calm now, not fearless, but focused, the way habla the logs on its drone. Esteban fired again, forcing the raiders to duck. It bought them seconds. Only seconds. Now, they broke from cover, plunging downhill toward the canyon mouth. Snow dragged at their legs, burning their muscles, stealing their breath. Weighing them, always under closer. The militia shouting, laughing, hunters enjoying the chase. Nayeli stumbled. Isa caught her, nearly falling herself. Esteban spun, fired blindly, and felt a sharp pain tear across his shoulder as a bullet grazed him. Worms spread beneath his coat. He gritted his teeth and kept running. The canyon swallowed them used as another valley cracked overhead. The walls rose steep and jagged, narrowing the pass, muting the wind. Snow here west in air, packed hard between a stone. Esteban knew this place. He had trapped wolves here once. He skidded to a hole near a narrow bend. High the hissed, pointing toward a rock outcrop thick with a dough. Isa pulled Nayeli into it without hesitation. Esteban climbed digger, scrambling onto a ledge overlooking the pass. His shoulder bent, but his hands were steady. He loaded his last bullets, air pounding not with fear, but with grim resolve. The raiders entered the canyon moments later, slowed now, cautious. The captain raised a hand. Careful, Ekayed. He knows this place. Esteban waited until the first horse passed beneath him. Then he kicked loose the rocks. A stone and Dise crashed down in a roaring avalanche. One horse screamed, collapsing under its rider. Another veered, throwing its man hard against the canyon wall. Gunfire erupted wildly. Esteban fired, aiming not to kill, but to wound. To the lie. A bullet struck a man's leg. Another hit a horse's flank, sending it bolting backward into the others. Chaos. Esteban slid down the opposite side of the ledge and ran. They reached the trading post at dusk. It was more ruined than building now, half-collapsed walls, a roof carved in under years of snow and neglect. But it was hidden, tucked between rock faces, invisible unless you knew where to look. Esteban barred the door with a beam and collapsed, breathing hard. Blood soaked his sleeve. Nayeli knelt beside him, hands trembling. You're ahead. He nodded. It's nothing. It wasn't a. Isa tore a class into strips and bound the wound with practiced efficiency. Her fingers were gentle but sure. You've done this before, Esteban said quietly. Her jaw tightened. Yes. Night fell quickly. They lit no fire. The cold crept in, silent and cruel. Nayeli shivered, feverish again, her breast shallow. Esteban gave her the last of the brows, watching her swallow like a child clinging to life. I'm sorry, Nayeli whispered. Vekause o fuese. Esteban shook his head. Don't. Outside. Wolves howled in the distance. Inside. The truth pressed closer. You didn't have to help Wese. Isa said softly, watching him through the dark. Why did you? Esteban stared at the broken roof, started speaking truth. Vekause 11, he said after a long pause. Someone opened the door for me. She didn't ask more. Before dawn, the dogs arrived. Their barking echoed through the canyon. Sharp and relentless. Nayeli yelled the walk, panic flooding her face. They found Wese, she whispered. Esteban pushed himself up, dizzy. He checked his rifle, empty. His pistol, 2 bullets left. 2. The militia voices followed the dogs. Closer now, confident. There is nowhere left to run. The captain called out. Come out, Rojas. Bring the girls. Esteban looked at the sisters. Isa met his gaze. There was no fear in her eyes now. Only decision. She reached into her belt and pulled out a small, bone-handled knife. You want to go back, she said. They killed Nayeli slowly. Esteban understood what she was offering. A way out. A final stand. Footsteps craned closer. The dog snarled used outside the door. The beams chattered as someone kicked it. Esteban raised his pistol. The door began to crack. The door splintered inward under the second kick. Good cracked like a gunshot. Shards flying across the frozen air. One of the dogs landed through the gap. This bird. Foam at its mouth. Esteban fired. The pistol roared in the enclosed space. The dog collapsed instantly, sliding across the snow-streaked floor. Shouts erupted outside. Now! Esteban yelled. Isa moved first. She shoved Nayeli toward the back of the trading post where the wall had partially collapsed, revealing a narrow crevice between rock and ruin. Go, Isa whispered fiercely. Don't look back. Nayeli obeyed, grabbing her sister's hands. No, please. Isa pressed her forehead to Nayeli's. Life. Another kick slammed into the door. The beams wrapped. Esteban fired his second bullet as the door burst open, forcing the first soldier back with a scream. Then the pistol clicked. Empty. The militia poured in. Esteban swung the pistol like a club, striking a man across the jaw. Another tackled him, driving him into the wall. Pain exploded through his wounded shoulder. Black spots danced in his vision. Isa lang from the side, her knife flashing. She didn't hesitate. The blood slid between ribs. The man gasped, eyes wide with disbelief, collapsing into the snow. The captain stared at her, shocked for only a heartbeat. Then smiled. There you are, he said. The fierce one. 2 soldiers grabbed Esteban, wrenching his arms behind his back. His knees hit the floor. Isa stood over him, knife rasped, blood dripping from her hand. Drop it, the captain said calmly, or he put a bullet in the ranchero's head. Nayeli cried out from the shadows. Isa's hand trembled. She lowered the knife. They bound Esteban, rough and efficient. A soldier struck him in the ribs when he resisted. Isa was disarmed, shoved to her knees beside him. The captain crowed in front of them. You've caused a lot of trouble, he said lightly. Killed a man. Head to more. He leaned closer to Isa. That makes you valuable. Isa spat at his boots. The captain wiped it off slowly. Take them. Outside. Down bled pale pink into the snow. They tied Esteban to a post near the ruined building. Rope bit into his wrists. Nayeli was dragged out last, barely able to stand, eyes wild with terror. Esteban met her gaze and shook his head, silently begging her to stay quiet. The captain addressed his men. We make an example. A rifle was raised. Isa screamed. What? Esteban shouted. His voice cracked. Take me. Let them go. The captain laughed. You, a rancher with nothing left to give. Esteban's eyes burned. He signed over the land. The cattle. Everything. The laughter stopped. The captain considered him. Slowly. You the give up your ranch, he said. For 2 Apache girls. Yes. Silence. The militia exchanged glances. The land was valuable. Everyone knew it. The captain straightened. Until the younger one. Nayeli's ropes were cut. She collapsed, sobbing, crawling toward Esteban. Not her, the captain said. The older. Isa stiffened. Says the killer, the captain continued. She comes with su ese. Nayeli screamed, clinging to Isa. Soldiers tore her away. Isa didn't fight. She looked at Esteban, her eyes steady, filled with something he didn't deserve, gratitude. Take care of her, she said softly. Esteban strained against the ropes. I'm sorry. The captain leaned closer to Isa's ear. Jueye fecha fine price. They mounted their horses. Nayeli screamed Isa's name as they rode away. Her sister bound and bleeding across a saddle. The snow swallowed them. Hours later, Esteban stood alone with Nayeli amid the ruins. His ranch was gone. His life was gone. But the war wasn't over. That night, as Nayeli slept fitfully beside the fire there to light, Esteban sharpened a blade. He didn't know how. He didn't know when. But he would bring Isa back. Or the train. Esteban buried the fire before dawn. Snow covered the ashes quickly, as if the land itself wanted to erase all traces of what had happened. He woke Nayeli gently, wrapping her in the sickest blanket he had left. She looked smaller than ever in the pale light, eyes swollen from crying, grief hollowing her face. She saved me, Nayeli whispered. She always does. Esteban nodded. There were no words strong enough to answer that. They traveled west. Not toward safety, but toward danger. Esteban knew where the militia took captives. An old fort repurposed as a holding post near the mines. It was a place men didn't leave a chance, if they left at all. The distance was brutal. Frozen rivers, open plants with no cover, nights that beat into bone. Nayeli's fever returned on the second night. She burned beneath his hands, murmuring in Apache, calling for Isa again and again. Esteban crashed snow for water, forced her to drink, held her when the shaking came. Every delay cost him, but leaving her would cost everything. On the third day, they found the tracks. Horse prints. Fresh. Headed north. Esteban followed them like a man possessed. By dusk, smoke appeared on the horizon. The fort, it squatted low and ugly against the wheat land, surrounded by crude fencing and wattage fires. Men moved along the perimeter, rifles slung casually, confident in their oscillation. Esteban crowed behind the rise, studying it. He had no army. No plan worthy of the name. You strike sharpened into resolve. You can't go in there, Nayeli whispered weakly. They killed you. He met her eyes. No. She grabbed his sleeve with surprising strength. Then take me somewhere safe. She voluntarily went. She didn't give herself up so he could run. Esteban said quietly. That night, he waited. A supply wagon arrived after midnight, cracking through the gate. Guards half asleep in the cold. Esteban moved when the gate opened again, sleeping closer, low, silent. He struck fast, hard enough to knock one man unconscious, deep enough to silence another. Blood steamed in the snow. Inside the fort, the air stank of sweat and iron. He moved through shadows, listening. Then he heard it. A scream. Broken. Female. Esteban followed the sound down into the lower barracks. Earth hammering. He found the cells. Crude iron bars. Flickering lantern light. Isa was there. Chained to the wall. Wrist raw and bleeding. Face bruised. Lip split. But her eyes still burned. She lifted her head slowly. When she saw him, something flickered across her face. Not relief. Anger. Why are you here? She whispered harshly. He told you to take her away. He come back, Esteban said, voice tight. For you. Footsteps echoed above. Isa shook her head. Then you're a fool. He worked the lock, hands checking, every second an knife. It opened with a soft click. The moment her chance fell, Isa staggered, then straightened, forcing strength into her limbs. They didn't make it 5 steps. A rifle boot slammed into Esteban's back, driving the breath from his lungs. He hit the ground hard. Boots crashed his ribs. Annie pinned his neck. The captain loomed above them, smiling. "I was hoping you'd come," he said pleasantly. "Men like you always do." They dragged them into the yard. Nayeli was already there. Bound. Bruised. Alive. Esteban's heart dropped into his stomach. You followed ese. The captain said, amused. Brave girl. Nayeli looked at Esteban, guilt flooding her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. The captain gestured toward the gallows beam at the center of the yard. We end this now. A rope was thrown over the beam. Esteban struggled wildly, roaring, but the soldiers held him fast. The captain turned to Isa. Last chance. Tell me where the rest of your people are hiding. Isa laughed. It was a broken sound, but defiant. The captain's smile vanished. He nodded. The rope tightened around Nayeli's neck. Isa screamed. Stop, she cried. Ella tell you. The captain raised a hand. Silence fell like a blood. Isa looked at Nayeli, her little sister, shaking, terrified, still alive. Then she looked at Esteban. Her eyes softened. I'm sorry, she said. And then she ran. Straight at the captain. A gunshot split the night. Isa fell. Blood spread across the snow like spilled ink. Esteban's scream tore his throat raw. The captain stared down at Isa's body, and with more than shocked. Such a waste. It turned. And froze. From the darkness beyond the fort, shapes moved. Dozens. Silent. Armed. Apache warriors stepped into the firelight, bows drawn, rifles raised. The snow was no longer empty. It was washing. The captain's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Firelight revealed them fully now. Apache warriors spreading in a silent arc around the fort, boots crunching softly in the snow, faces hard as stone. Some carried rifles taken from dead men. Others held bows already drawn, arrows trembling with restrained power. No archeries. No warnings. Only certainty. The first arrow flew. It struck the captain clean through the throat, pinning him backward against the gallows beam. His body jerked once, twice, then sagged, blood steaming as it sawed into the rope meant for Nayeli. Shouts erupted. Militiamen shouted, firing wildly, but they were already surrounded. Shots went wide. Arrows did not. A archery lasso was matched, delivered, and at throats, heads, hands reaching for triggers. Esteban was thrown to the ground as a soldier collapsed on top of him, dead before he hit the snow. He rolled free, gasping, visions swimming. Isa, shouted. She lay was terrifying, blood dark against the white, eyes half open. Esteban crawled to her, ignoring the battle raging around them. A bullet had torn through her side. Too deep. Too much blood. She was still breathing. Barely. Nayeli was on her knees beside her sister, sobbing uncontrollably, hands pressed uselessly against the wound. Isa, please, please. Isa's eyes found Nayeli's face. A faint smile touched her lips. Hey, she whispered. Little bird. Nayeli shook her head violently. No. Don't talk like that. Isa's gaze shifted to Esteban. She studied him as if fixing his face into memory. You come back, she said. He promised, whispered. Say exhaled, slow and shaky. You solve listen to me. As a doe fell over them. An older Apache man stepped forward, his hair streaked with gray, eyes deep and knowing. And knelt beside Isa, took one look, and closed his eyes. Say walks the last trail, he said softly. Nayeli let out a sound that didn't seem human. Isa reached for her sister's hand with trembling fingers. Nayeli grabbed it instantly, pressing it to her cheek. You life, Isa whispered. You hear me? You life. That's how you honor me. Tears streamed down Nayeli's face. Sai nodded frantically. I promise. Isa smiled one last time. Her hand went slack. The battle ended moments later. Snow fell again, quiet and indifferent, settling over bodies, militia and Apache alike. The fort burned, flames leaking up into the pale morning sky, carrying smoke and screams and history with them. They buried Isa down, on a ridge overlooking the plants, where the wind sang low and steady. The Apache women panted her face with soche, braided her hair, let her bow beside her. Esteban stood apart, hair in his hands, chest hollow. Nayeli placed a small bonnet charm into the grave, something Isa had carried since childhood. She found her way, Nayeli said softly. Weeks later, the snow began to melt. The Apache moved on, westward, deeper into lands still untouched. They offered Nayeli a place among them. Safety. Family. Sai accepted. Before she left, she stood with Esteban at the edge of the camp. You gave up everything, she said. Your land. Your life. Esteban looked out at the horizon. He had already lost it. She stepped forward and embraced him tightly. You gave my sister dignity. She pulled back, eyes shining. That matters. When she rode away, Esteban watched until she was gone. He never returned to the ranch. Years later, travelers spoke of a man who lived alone near the old canyon, helping lost souls through storms, opening his door when others volunteered. They said he carried an Apache knife at his belt and kept the bowls by his feet. Some said he was a fool. Others said he was brave. The land remembered him differently. And when winter came hard and cruel, and the snow fell thick enough to kill, there were whispers carried on the wind, of two Apache sisters who once begged for life at a door, and of the man who opened it. Not because it was safe, but because it was right.